I buried my husband and thought the pain couldn't get any worse. But just 1 week later, at my nephew's first birthday party, my own sister stood up, held her baby, and said, "This child is your husband's son. And now I'll take half of your $800,000 house." She even waved his will in my face. Everyone gasped, waiting for me to break down. But instead, I smiled, because my husband had left me one last secret, one that would destroy her entire plan. No. Please do make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to support us. Grief is strange. It doesn't knock politely before entering your chest. It storms in, rearranges everything, and days you to breathe normally again. After Daniel's funeral, I felt like my insides were made of broken glass. People hugged me, whispered, "Stay strong," but their words floated in the air like smoke. Nothing touched me. Nothing made sense. So when Clara, my own sister, decided to host her son's first birthday party just a week after I buried my husband, I went. Not because I wanted to celebrate, but because sitting at home with his empty chair staring at me felt worse. Her living room was full of balloons, laughter, and the sweet scent of cake. Children ran across the floor with sticky hands, and for a brief second, I thought maybe the noise would numb my pain. Until Clara raised her glass. She cleared her throat, her smile wide and practiced. "Everyone," she announced, her voice slicing through the chatter, "today isn't just about my son's birthday. It's about acknowledging the truth." People turned toward her, glasses in hand. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Then she dropped the bomb. "My son is Daniel's child, and since Daniel left a will, I'll be taking my rightful share of his estate, half of the $800,000 house." A gasp echoed across the room. All eyes shifted from her triumphant smake to me, and there I stood, widow, humiliated, blindsided, everyone expecting me to collapse under the weight of betrayal. But instead, I smiled, a slow, sharp smile. "Oh, I see," I whispered, pressing the rim of my glass against my lips. Because what Clara didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that I already had the truth tucked safely away. Looking back now, the signs were always there. Daniel had become restless. He worked late nights. His phone buzzed with messages he never let me see, and sometimes when I touched him, he flinched, like my hand carried guilt instead of love. And Clara, she had started visiting me more often, smiling too wide, laughing too loud, as though she wanted to prove something. I remember once catching her in the hallway, staring a little too long at one of Daniel's jackets hanging on the coat rack. It felt wrong, but denial is a sweet drug. I told myself I was overthinking, that my husband loved me, that my sister wouldn't betray me, until the night everything shifted. Daniel had fallen asleep at his desk, the glow of his laptop still on his face. His hand rested over a pile of papers, but his breathing was deep, steady, and something inside me, some aching instinct, told me to look. With trembling fingers, I opened the drawer beneath him, and there it was, hotel receipts, letters in Clara's handwriting, little notes addressed to him like a lover, signed with hearts. One read, "Soon she'll know. But remember, you promised me half. You said she wouldn't matter once the papers are signed." I felt the world tilt beneath me. My husband, my sister. The betrayal was so sharp I couldn't even cry. Instead, I placed everything back carefully, quietly, as though I had never seen it. And in that moment, I made a choice. I would not confront them. Not yet. I would wait, watch, and when the time came, I would not be the fool they thought I was. A month before Daniel's death, something in him shifted. His face was paler, his hands more unsteady. He moved slower, his energy draining. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, he looked at me with tired eyes. "I've made arrangements," he said, his voice low. "Arrangements?" I asked, my fork freezing halfway to my lips. He nodded, almost ashamed. "To make sure you're safe, no matter what happens." I didn't understand. I wanted to ask more, but he reached across the table and took my hand, his grip weak. "You'll see," he whispered. It wasn't until after his funeral that I understood what he meant. Because when the house was finally empty and the mourners had gone, I went back to that drawer in his office, and I found it, a new will, dated 3 weeks before his death, signed by him and sealed by his lawyer. Everything to me. No exceptions. No mention of Clara. No mention of her child. Tears blurred my vision as I clutched the document to my chest. For the first time in months, I felt something other than grief. He had chosen me. In the end, despite his sins, he had given me the truth. And Clara, oh, Clara had no idea she was holding a worthless piece of paper in her hand. The birthday party should have been a celebration. Instead, it turned into a theater, and Clara was the star actress. She held her glass high, her eyes sweeping across the guests like a queen addressing her court. "My son," she said loudly, "is Daniel's blood, which means Daniel's legacy belongs to him. Half of that $800,000 house is mine." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some people gasped. Others whispered. A few looked at me with pity, their eyes heavy with sorrow as if my humiliation was now public property. Clara relished it. I could see the smirk playing at her lips, the satisfaction in her eyes as she savored my silence. She even waved the papers in her hand, the so-called will, as if it were an Olympic medal. "Daniel wanted me and my son cared for," she declared, "and he promised me this house. Now, his wishes will be honored." I could feel every pair of eyes on me, waiting, wondering. Would the widow scream? Would she cry? Would she crumble right there in front of them all? Instead, I sipped my wine and whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. "Oh, I see." Her smirk wavered, just for a second, because she expected devastation, not amusement, and in that instant I knew I had rattled her. 2 days later, I heard the rumble of a car outside. When I opened the door, Clara was standing on the porch, her arms crossed smugly over her chest, a moving truck parked behind her. "Well," she said, stepping forward, "since we'll be sharing the house, I thought I'd come early. You know, claim my half." Behind her, movers began unloading boxes, each one labeled with her name. She acted like she owned the place already, like my grief and pain were just background music to her grand arrival. I stepped aside. "Of course," I said softly. "If that's what you believe, come in." Her eyebrows shot up. She expected resistance, maybe even a fight. But greed blinds people. She couldn't see the calm in my eyes was not surrender, it was calculation. She paraded through the house like a queen, pointing at walls, asking which room she could renovate first. Her voice echoed through the halls that Daniel and I had once shared, and with every word, I clenched my fists behind my back to keep from shaking with rage. But I stayed silent, patient, because the trap was already set. That night, while Clara slept soundly in the guest room she had claimed, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, my hand steady. By morning, a courier arrived with an envelope bearing Daniel's lawyer's seal. When Clara tore it open, her smile faltered. Inside was the real will, dated, signed, notarized, every word crystal clear. I, Daniel Harris, leave my entire estate, property, and assets solely to my wife. No exceptions. No alternates. Her name was nowhere in it. Her son's name was nowhere in it. Nothing. Clara's face drained of color as she read it again, her hands trembling. This can't be right," she whispered. "He promised. He signed the draft." "Yes," I said calmly, leaning on the kitchen counter. "A draft, not the final will. He changed it 3 weeks before he died. I suppose he finally saw the truth about you." Her eyes widened, her lips trembling with fury. You're lying." I smiled, sipping my tea. "Am I?" Clara exploded. "You think you're clever," she hissed. "This isn't over. That baby is Daniel's. Everyone knows it. I'll get the DNA test. I'll drag you to court. You'll lose everything. You'll see." She stood there, shaking, her voice shrill, as if volume alone could erase the truth. I leaned forward, lowering my voice to a dangerous whisper. "Go ahead. Do the test. But let me warn you, Clara, the results might not be what you expect." She blinked, confusion flickering in her eyes, because Daniel had already confessed to me weeks before his death. Quietly, shamefully, he had told me he'd done a paternity test behind her back, and the results were clear. The baby wasn't his. The test was done. Weeks later, the truth arrived in a thin white envelope. Negative. Clara's son, her pride, her weapon, her ticket to my house and my humiliation, was not Daniel's child. The news spread fast. The whispers in the family shifted. The pitying looks no longer aimed at me but at her. The sympathy drained from faces, replaced with judgment. She had destroyed herself with her own greed. And me, I stayed quiet, serene, watching, waiting, letting her drown in the shame she had poured on herself. Weeks later, I stood on the balcony of my home. My home, the house Clara thought she could steal. The same house where she tried to humiliate me, strip me of dignity, claim victory over my grief. And I laughed, not the bitter laugh of the widow at the birthday party, not the broken laugh of a woman scorned, but a deep, genuine laugh of freedom. Clara had lost everything, her lies exposed, her child's paternity revealed, her false will shredded. And Daniel, despite his sins, had left me with the last word. Revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was quiet, patient, and absolute, and it tasted sweeter than anything I had ever known.